The biting cold of a New York morning swept through the busy street outside Mount Sinai Children's Hospital, making people hurry along the icy sidewalks with their collars pulled high and eyes mostly fixed on the ground. In the middle of all these rushing feet, Sam, a 9-year-old boy, sat perfectly still on a flattened cardboard box close to the hospital entrance. His notebook was open on his lap, the pages full of doodles and quick sketches done with a blunt pencil stub. His boots were patched up with duct tape, and a faded red beanie covered both of his small ears. He barely noticed the shivers that sometimes ran through his thin frame. Instead, he stayed completely focused on what he was drawing. People moved, past him one after another, most barely sparing him a glance. No one stopped to ask why he was sitting out in the cold on a morning like this, or where his parents might be. But Sam was watching intently, tracking the faces and tiny details in each person who went by. The nurse balancing a coffee tray, the security guard checking his phone, the mothers clutching their children's hands. There was something in his gaze, a mix of patience and hope, as though he was waiting for something only he would recognize. The silence around him wasn't empty, but thick with the sense of anticipation, as if this morning might bring a quiet turning point. Across the street, inside a sleek black SUV parked by the curb, Michael sat in the driver's seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel, though the car wasn't moving. He looked at Mount Sinai Children's Hospital through the windshield with eyes rimmed by sleeplessness, the kind that comes from carrying losses too heavy to name. His suit jacket was rumpled, forgotten in the tension of too many hospital visits. He let out a quiet sigh, just loud enough that someone really listening might have heard it. Beside him in the back seat, his daughter Lily, just 6 years old, was bundled up tight in her favorite pink blanket. She stared up at the wintry sky through the car window, silent and distant, her small hands gripping the edge of the blanket. Since the accident a few months ago, Lily hadn't moved her legs, and the life she'd known had changed almost overnight. The blue of her eyes seemed a little faded lately, like her energy was all being used up, fighting a battle inside her that Michael could not help her win. Every tiny action, starting the car, locking the doors, speaking to his daughter, felt carefully measured. Michael was afraid if he made one wrong move, the small, fragile pieces left of their family would shatter completely. The hospital stood across from them, a place filled with stories of hope and healing for so many. But for Michael, each visit was a reminder of things broken, of dreams he could never quite put back together. As Michael helped Lily out of the car, careful not to disturb her blanket or bang her legs on the door, his focus was completely on her comfort. He kept his eyes down, watching her small face for signs of pain as he gently lifted her into her wheelchair. The city seemed to blur around them, just the noise of traffic and the cold pressing in from all sides. He didn't notice Sam at first, still sitting quietly on his cardboard box with that battered notebook. But as Michael rolled Lily toward the hospital's automatic doors, he suddenly felt a gaze settle on him, direct and unwavering. Michael finally glanced up and found himself looking straight into the eyes of a small boy, bundled in a red beanie and patched boots. There was nothing timid about the way Sam watched him and Lily. In fact, it was almost like he'd been waiting for them all along. Just as they drew level, Sam stood up and spoke, his voice low but clear enough to cut through the morning air. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." The words seemed impossible, but Sam's certainty made Michael stop in his tracks. For a second, he wasn't angry or even hopeful, just caught by a strange, restless curiosity, as if someone had tugged at a memory he wasn't sure belonged to him. Michael's first reaction was almost a reflex, a quick shaking of his head, his lips pressed tight, as if to guard himself from the kind of hope that only leaves you hurting more in the end. "Come on, Lily," he said quietly, steering her wheelchair past Sam without another glance. Inside the waiting area, with its harsh fluorescent lights and the steady hum of hospital life, Michael tried to push away what he'd just heard. It was easier to focus on check-in forms, insurance questions, and Lily's favorite snack he'd packed for the long wait. Still, no matter how much he tried to distract himself, Sam's voice wouldn't leave him. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again," echoed in his mind, louder than the doctors discussing therapy schedules or appointments stacked for the month ahead. As Michael listened to another doctor talk about patience and limitations, about new treatments that could take years, that memory kept slipping in. Sam's words didn't sound naive anymore. They lingered, stubborn and persistent, a whisper at the back of his mind. For the first time since the accident, something tiny and dangerous started to grow, a small crack in the wall he'd built around his heart. Hope, though he would never have called it that, seemed a little less impossible. When Michael and Lily finally stepped out of the hospital, the sky was beginning to darken, and the wind picked up along the avenue. Michael felt tired, his body weighed down by long hours and the frustration of another day with no progress. As he maneuvered Lily's wheelchair onto the sidewalk, he almost wasn't surprised to see Sam sitting on the same worn cardboard box, his notebook across his knees. It was as if Sam had expected them all along, waiting with a quiet confidence that didn't waver. Their eyes met, and there was a moment of awkward silence. Michael tried to walk right past, but something about Sam's steady expression held him in place. He expected to see pleading or desperation, but there was none. Instead, Sam looked at him calmly, as if ready to back up those bold words from earlier. Michael, frustrated and guarded, finally stopped and asked Sam hard, practical questions. Where were his parents? What did he really mean? And why would a kid know anything about therapy? Sam didn't flinch. He talked about his own mother, who had been a physical therapist before she passed away. She used to tell him that sometimes the body just forgets what it can do, and sometimes it just needs a little help remembering. Quietly, Sam offered to spend 1 hour with Lily, asking for nothing in return, only a chance to try. Michael hesitated, weighing all the reasons he should walk away. But just as he was about to say no, something about Sam's steady voice and calm eyes made it hard to dismiss him. After a few beats, Michael found himself agreeing to meet Sam the following afternoon at Prospect Park, a stretch of green that most people seem to forget about these days, especially as winter settled. Truthfully, his decision came more from being exhausted and out of answers than any real belief that Sam could help. There was just something about the way Sam didn't ask for anything, didn't push, and didn't promise miracles, just an honest offer to try that made Michael pause. Later that evening, as Michael made dinner and helped Lily with her homework, he kept replaying the strange conversation in his mind. He couldn't convince himself it was anything more than a desperate hope. But then Lily broke through his thoughts. For the first time in months, she asked, "Dad, do you think I could walk again someday?" That question hit him harder than he expected. It was not just the words, it was the glimmer in her voice he hadn't heard since before the accident. Sam's simple, genuine offer had already started to chip away at the wall of despair that surrounded both of them. The next afternoon, when Michael and Lily arrived at Prospect Park, they found Sam already waiting near the empty playground. The grass was brown and stiff from the cold, and most of the benches were dusted with a thin layer of frost. The park felt almost abandoned, the usual city noise replaced by a gentle quiet that made everything seem softer. Spread out on a faded old blanket at Sam's feet were several items: some fuzzy socks, a worn tennis ball, a small tub of cream, and a cloth bag filled with warm rice. It was a strange collection, but Sam looked at it with the kind of care that made Michael pause. Lily clung to her pink blanket as Michael pushed her closer. He felt awkward, unsure if he was a bad parent for letting this odd meeting happen, yet something told him it was worth trying. Sam greeted them both simply, his tone gentle but straightforward, and took a few moments to explain what each item was for, talking through everything as if he'd done this 1,000 times. Before touching Lily's legs, he looked right at her and asked if it was okay, waiting for her small nod before he did anything. Every move Sam made was careful, always checking that Lily stayed comfortable and never rushed. Michael watched, surprised at how much trust his daughter showed this strange, confident boy. As the session began, Sam talked with Lily about all sorts of little things, her favorite shows, the stray cat that used to wander near her building, what kind of pizza she liked best. All the while, he gently rolled the tennis ball along her calf, careful not to press too hard, always checking her face for any sign of discomfort. He warmed his hands before massaging the cream onto her knees and tucked the warm rice bag under her feet with a quiet, reassuring smile. The simple conversation was just as important as anything else he was doing. Lily started off shy, barely speaking above a whisper, but soon little grins began to slip through, and her answers came quicker. Michael stood nearby, arms crossed and trying to look calm, though inside he was full of nerves. He watched Sam's patient focus, the way the boy listened when Lily spoke and never interrupted. It was more than technique. It was something gentler, something Michael hadn't seen in all those sterile appointments and waiting rooms. There was a warmth that made Lily's face relax in a way he barely remembered. Michael caught himself hoping just a little that something real could change. For the first time in a long while, belief crept in. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something different. As the session wound down, Sam carefully tucked the warm rice bag back into his backpack and gave Lily a playful thumbs up. She beamed at him, the kind of smile Michael hadn't seen in so long that it almost brought tears to his eyes. Feeling both grateful and awkward, Michael reached for his wallet. He pulled out a $20 bill and offered it to Sam, not really sure if it was enough or too much, just wanting to give something back for the care and attention his daughter had received. Sam paused, looked at the money, then shook his head. "I don't need that," Sam said quietly, brushing his hands on his jeans. "Lily's smile is enough for me. That's all I wanted." Michael stared, caught off guard. He was a man used to paying for every bit of help and feeling like nothing ever quite made a difference. Now here was this boy, who clearly didn't have much, refusing money as if it didn't matter at all. Michael struggled to understand it. For the first time in what felt like forever, he realized someone was helping just to help. Not for praise, not for cash, just because they could. It made something shift inside him, and he felt a deep, surprising sense of gratitude and humility he hadn't touched in years. Over the next several Sundays, Michael and Lily kept returning to Prospect Park, while Sam showed up every time, his backpack packed with his makeshift therapy kit. The sessions settled into a kind of gentle rhythm. There were no miracles. No one expected Lily to leap from her chair and run. But there were little changes that mattered more than they let on. One week, Lily moved her big toe just the tiniest bit. The next, she could tense a muscle in her calf when Sam asked her to try. Each time, the smiles between all three of them grew a little wider, and Michael started to catch himself hoping again. While Sam worked with Lily, he often told stories about his mom. He spoke of how she used to visit homeless shelters in Brooklyn, bringing food and showing people how to care for their bodies in small ways that restored some dignity. He laughed about how she never let him skip school, even after long nights helping others, and repeated her favorite saying that sometimes the best thing you could do was just remind a person they were still human. As the weeks went on, the awkwardness faded, replaced by honest conversation and a real sense of trust. Michael started to realize he was no longer fighting this battle alone. The three of them, in their own quiet way, were building something like hope. One chilly Sunday, the air in Prospect Park seemed even heavier than usual. Lily arrived looking glum, her shoulders hunched and her eyes fixed on the ground. Michael tried to cheer her up with a silly joke on the way over, but she barely looked at him. When Sam greeted them and started setting up the blanket, Lily's frustration finally boiled over. She snapped, "It's not working, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore." Her lower lip trembled, and soon she was sobbing into her hands. Michael sat beside her, helpless, not sure if he should say anything or just hold her close. Sam quietly moved closer, and instead of pushing her to keep going, he knelt right beside her in the brittle grass. In a soft voice, he told Lily about some of his own hard nights, about the years he spent in city shelters when he and his mom were between places, how it felt to miss her so much, and the days when everything seemed pointless. "It's okay to be angry," he said, meeting Lily's teary eyes. "You're allowed to feel sad and scared. Feeling weak isn't the same as quitting." The honesty in his words seemed to reach her, and after a few deep breaths, Lily agreed to try again. In that moment, as Michael watched the two of them sitting there in the cold, he realized vulnerability could actually bring people closer. Together, the three of them found the strength to face one more session. Something unexpected happened. That day, right as the session was ending, Lily, still wiping her eyes, tried again to flex her foot like Sam had shown her week after week. Suddenly, her toes twitched, and then, slowly but clearly, she managed to lift her foot an inch off the blanket. For a moment, nobody said a word. Michael saw it first, his heart skipping as he stared at his daughters. "Vut!" And then he burst out laughing and crying all at once. He knelt in front of Lily, and even though both of them were a mess, with teary faces and red noses, they both grinned as wide as they ever had. Sam's face lit up too, and he gave Lily a gentle high five, understanding without needing to say a thing. To anyone passing by, it might have looked like nothing, just a family gathered in the cold, not much happening at all. But for the three of them, that tiny movement was everything. It was proof that all the effort and pain meant something, that even when progress was slow and invisible, it was still happening. Their celebration was quiet, held in the wide stillness of the park, a small and private miracle built on stubbornness and hope. As spring settled in over Brooklyn, those Sunday mornings in Prospect Park turned into something more than just a routine. They felt like an essential part of life. Rain or shine, the three of them would show up with their blanket and Sam's backpack, ready for another try. Lily found herself looking forward to Sam's stories as much as the exercises, and Michael, once just an observer, slowly got more involved. Sam started teaching him little tricks for stretches and ways to encourage Lily at home. Michael learned how to support her legs just right, how to spot when she was getting tired, and when to push her to try a little more. Before long, these lessons carried over into their apartment. Instead of heavy silences or the tired drone of television, there was more laughter and conversation in the rooms. Michael and Lily practiced those same movements between sessions, sometimes messing up and falling into fits of giggles. Sam wasn't just a helper anymore. He became someone who stayed for lunch, sharing sandwiches and stories at the kitchen table. The distance that used to hang over the family faded, replaced by a quiet joy in the everyday details. Even Sam's laughter felt like it belonged there, warm and familiar. Their lives no longer felt paused. They were moving forward together, step by small step. Months went by, and as the sessions continued, Michael realized how little he really knew about Sam's life beyond their weekly routine. The boy never talked much about where he stayed or what he did after leaving the park. Driven by a growing concern, Michael started paying more attention. He noticed Sam's clothes were always a bit worn and that he rarely carried anything besides that same backpack. Quietly, Michael asked around at the local shelter and learned the truth. Sam didn't have a stable place to go home to. He had been moving from one shelter to another ever since his mother passed away 2 years earlier. The news hit Michael hard. He had always assumed Sam had somewhere safe to return to, even if it was not much. The thought of someone so young facing that kind of uncertainty every day gnawed at him. Michael spent a few sleepless nights thinking about all the ways he and Lily took safety and comfort for granted. After talking it over with Lily, who immediately said Sam was already like a brother to her, Michael made up his mind. One Sunday, as they packed up after another session, Michael looked at Sam and invited him to come live with them. It wasn't just about having a roof. It was a real offer of family, a place to belong. When Sam moved in with Michael and Lily, it happened without any big fuss or celebration. Michael helped him carry in a trash bag filled with his clothes, while Lily, trying to act casual, showed Sam his new room. The space wasn't huge, but to Sam it felt like a kingdom. There was a real bed with clean sheets, a bright blue comforter, and even a small desk by the window that looked out onto the street below. For the first time in years, Sam had a little corner of the world that was just for him. At first, Sam kept his backpack tucked under his pillow and barely unpacked his things. He didn't talk about it, but Lily understood how hard it was to fully trust that this wasn't temporary. Over dinners and late evenings spent playing board games or watching movies together, the three of them grew closer. Lily started sharing little victories, a hand that clenched tighter, a toe that wiggled more, and Sam was always the first to cheer her on. The two of them developed their own jokes and looked out for each other in small ways, from swapping snacks to scrolling through music playlists. Step by step, Sam became more than just a guest. He was her brother now, and his happiness began to matter to both Lily and Michael as much as their own. As summer crept in, Lily's progress became hard to ignore. One sunny Sunday, a nurse from the children's rehab wing happened to jog past their picnic spot in Prospect Park. She paused, watching Lily stretch her legs and manage a careful step with Sam and Michael cheering her on. Later that week, she mentioned the scene to her co-workers at Methodist Hospital, word spreading quietly among the nurses and therapists. Soon, neighbors and even strangers from nearby neighborhoods started showing up, hoping that the boy who worked wonders might help their children too. Sam felt a bit nervous at first, unsure how to handle all the new faces. He was used to being quiet and out of sight, not the center of attention, but Lily and Michael encouraged him, reminding him how much his patience and simple exercises had helped their family. One by one, other parents asked for advice, sitting on blankets with their children and sharing stories about slow recoveries and hard days. Sam listened, offered tips and encouragement, and walked them through stretches that he and Lily used. Little by little, Sunday mornings turned into something bigger. It wasn't only about Lily anymore, but about a growing group of families who leaned on each other for support and hope, all starting from that one breakthrough step. As summer rolled on, Prospect Park became more than just a patch of grass for a few families. Every Sunday morning, people came carrying folding chairs, picnic blankets, and sometimes trays of fruit or bottles of water. Local therapists began to join in, volunteering a little bit of their time to help out where they could. The nearby coffee shop sent over boxes of bagels and muffins, dropping them off with a cheerful wave that made everyone smile. What had started as a small personal gathering slowly turned into a kind of community support circle, with parents sharing tips, kids trying new stretches, and laughter echoing through the shady trees. Through all the growing buzz, Sam stayed true to what mattered most to him. He wasn't looking for his name in the news or hoping to be seen as a hero. He wanted each kid who came to feel important, to feel like they could do small things that mattered. He watched Lily closely, making sure she never got lost in the shuffle as more and more families joined. No matter how many new faces appeared, Sam always made time for Lily, giving her encouragement or a gentle nudge to keep going. She was his first student, his best friend, and the reason so many found hope here in the first place. Not long after, the local newspaper caught wind of what was happening in Prospect Park. A reporter showed up one Sunday with a camera and a notepad, quietly observing and chatting with some of the families. Within a week, a story hit the news. The boy with a gift brings hope to Brooklyn, though Sam had asked them not to use his full name. The article described how Sam had started by helping Lily, and how their group was now drawing more. Families and even professionals all coming together to support these kids. The attention brought some real changes. Doctors from Brooklyn's top hospitals reached out to see if they could lend a hand with equipment or expert tips. A couple of local non-profits showed up offering therapy sessions for families who could never have afforded it otherwise. Volunteers arrived, some bringing yoga mats, others with books for the kids. Through it all, Sam tried not to let the spotlight set him apart. He told everyone the same thing, that any progress belonged to the kids and their families for sticking with it, not to one person alone. For the first time since his mother passed away, Sam felt connected to something bigger than himself. His pain had a place now, and in helping others, it started to change into something much closer to hope. Even as things grew, Sam kept things simple, pausing to listen to each new story and treating every family with the same respect he wanted for his own. After 9 Sundays of gathering in Prospect Park, everyone could feel a special kind of buzz in the air. That morning, families set up their usual little circle, but there was something different. Lily, more steady and sure of herself, was clearly getting ready for something big. She glanced at Michael and Sam, who gave her encouraging nods. The crowd that had grown over the weeks seemed to sense what was about to happen. Conversations faded into quiet, and even the kids stopped fidgeting. Lily took a breath, hands gripping her chair as Sam and Michael moved to either side of her, ready to help but careful not to push. With a deep breath, Lily shifted her weight, and slowly, with effort you could see in her face, she began to stand. Her legs shook, her knuckles turned white on the armrests, but she did not back down. It felt like the whole park was holding its breath. Then, steady and a little surprised herself, Lily managed to stand tall, her eyes shining with determination. The silence broke. Tears rolled down faces, and there were hugs all around, but no one wanted to startle her with a big cheer. Lily's first steps were slow and wobbly, and she collapsed right into Michael's arms, both laughing and crying as everyone joined the moment, feeling the power of hope up close. Later that night, after the excitement in the park had faded and everyone had gone home, Michael sat with Sam at the small kitchen table. The apartment was filled with the gentle noise of Lily's laughter drifting down the hall as she talked to her friends on the phone, retelling the story of her steps. Michael looked at Sam for a long moment and just said, "Thank you. You changed everything, not just for Lily, but for all of us." He sounded tired, but there was happiness in his voice that had not been there before. Sam played with the hem of his shirt for a second, then answered quietly, "I just did what my mom would have done. I think she's watching now, wherever she is." It was the first time in a long while that Sam felt able to talk about his mom without feeling lost. The whole apartment, which had once seemed so heavy with sadness, now felt completely different. The walls echoed with laughter. Warmth and hope filled every corner. Sam realized you did not need a lot of material things to become the center of something big. With kindness and patience, even one kid could bring people together. For everyone. In that home, what seemed impossible before was now simply daily life, happening one steady step after another.